Hi, my name is Scott Durham. I am making this proposal for a professional learning experience about the Holocaust. I'm calling it Teaching the Holocaust in a Meaningful Way, even when you don't have the time. And having been involved with the Holocaust, with Holocaust education for many years, I find that this is a common problem amongst teachers of the Holocaust, both in the language arts area, at the middle school, at the high school, in history, whatever area that you're teaching the Holocaust in. It seems like trying to find a way to teach it in a meaningful way in a limited amount of time is a challenge that many people face. And so I kind of want to address that head on in this professional learning experience and try to find ways that teachers can make use of the information that I have and the experience that I have so that that their students learn and do meaningful things in their experience with the Holocaust. And so let me take you through what I have planned for the day. Here we go. So again, here is the name of the topic that I am proposing. And first of all, I guess let me tell you why I think it's important. As you probably know, in 2016, the state of Michigan enacted Public Act 170, which recommends, doesn't require, but recommends a combined total of 6 hours of genocide and Holocaust education between grades 8 to 12. Now, for me, this doesn't sound like a lot, but at least that there is this recommendation. And obviously, there's no Holocaust and genocide education police going around to various schools to make sure that they do 6 hours of instruction. But if schools are committed to this, teachers are committed to this, we can find a way to make those 6 hours be very meaningful. There are alignments with specific standards as well, both in the world history curriculum at the high school and in the U.S. history curriculum. And in fact, I find it very interesting that the U.S. history curriculum really focuses on the American response to the Holocaust, which is something that many people don't really engage with. There's also connections to language arts. Here are a bunch of standards that deal with the concept of narrative, both the reading and the writing of narratives. That would be a great way to access through the use of Holocaust texts. Also the concept of research, which is also a common thing amongst high school language arts standards, could be another way that the Holocaust can be used as a tool to accomplish those standards in a meaningful and even engaging way. Students seem to really enjoy and are empowered and invigorated by the study of the Holocaust. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. First of all, a few years ago, I was selected for the American Gathering of Holocaust Survivors and their Families Teachers Program. During this program, we visited 12 or 13 concentration camps in Europe, working with the educational staffs at each of those to figure out how best to tell the story of each of those places, as well as how to tell the story within the context of the entire Holocaust event as well. I was appointed to the Governor's Council in Holocaust and Genocide Education, where we developed various ways to help teachers teach the Holocaust in Michigan. Some of the things you'll see here are part of that. Some things are mine that aren't part of that. But that was a great experience to work with members of the Jewish and Armenian communities, especially in the state of Michigan, to figure out how best to tell their stories. Throughout my teaching career, I partnered with the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum on several projects. We brought touring exhibits to my community of Battle Creek, including one on Oskar Schindler, one on hidden children of the Holocaust. We even were part of the beta test group with a project that they called History Unfolded, where they asked high school students to research through their own newspapers in their own local communities to figure out what Americans knew about the Holocaust and when they knew it. This project has now expanded to be an official part of the educational experience at the Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C. There's a website now that where classes and teachers from across the country and really across the world can really access. They can do their own research in their own communities and submit their research to the Holocaust Museum. The project has resulted now in an official exhibit that's now on display in the museum in Washington, D.C., where visitors can actually access the research that high school students have done throughout the years across the country. And probably most importantly, I am a teacher of the Holocaust for over 20 years in different aspects, in the world history curriculum, in the American history curriculum, and even in an elective that I have created and taught myself. Currently, on top of teaching at the high school level, I'm also a fourth-year doctoral student at Michigan State University, teaching, learning about curriculum, instruction, and teacher education. So with all of that, one thing that I really want to emphasize, as we talk about this learning experience, as we start this learning experience, is these basic rules of Holocaust and genocide education. Really, no matter how long you have to teach, whether it be an hour or 6 hours or 14 days, everything that we do probably should be reflected and put in the context of these basic rules to make sure that we're doing the best that we can with what we have, whether the time and resources or knowledge that we have to teach the Holocaust. And so we'll be exploring these basic rules just to make sure that everything that we do, that we're about to do, and that I'm about to explain that we're going to do during this learning experience will be reflected and judged against these 7 rules. So here's how I have the day spelled out. First of all, at the beginning, we'll have some introductions. Then we'll have a discussion with the teachers in the room about the experiences that they have had with the teaching of the Holocaust. And we do this just to maybe, first of all, form some natural connections that might be in the room. And so some of these experiences are going to come from, hopefully, language arts teachers that have a different way of looking at and teaching the Holocaust, and then some from a more historical view. Through this conversation, I will get to know who the teachers in the room and maybe a little bit what they're looking for. But hopefully they'll see each other, see some partners in the room that they can work and support each other later on in the day. We'll then talk about the challenges that we face teaching the Holocaust. Some of the common ones are, of course, time. A lot of teachers want to spend more time, but they just don't have the time. Second one is a lack of resources. There are some common resources that are used across the country when we talk about Holocaust education, things like Schindler's List or the Diary of Anne Frank or Elie Wiesel's Night, or, there are these common resources, but let me tell you, there's a whole slew of resources out there that it took me 20 years to find. And I would like to see if these participants are looking for additional resources. Well, I got them, and we'll explore them in a little bit. We'll also here at the beginning talk about the framework for Holocaust education that I've come up with and I've adopted that seems to work pretty well, and we'll talk about what that looks like in a minute in a little bit more detail. And then we're going to ask the participants to set some goals for themselves. So really what I would like the participants to leave the day with is something that they can actually use in their classroom in the upcoming year, whether it be a lesson or one activity or even a unit plan, whatever they want. I would love for them to leave here at 3 o'clock at the end of the day with something that is usable, something new that they've thought about that can be used in a meaningful way in their own classrooms. And so we'll have them put those in writing so that I know as a teacher, and certainly with the challenges that they identify as well. There are going to be challenges that are particular to the group of people that are sitting in front of me in this room at this time. And so I would really want to make sure I address those challenges and not just do some cookie cutter presentation about how to teach the Holocaust. It's really about the people in the room and the different experiences in particular environments in which they teach that I would like to tailor this presentation as we go forth. And so that's kind of what the first hour here in the morning is trying to get to know who the participants are, have them get to know each other, figure out the challenges that they might be facing, things that they want out of this presentation, and the goals that they have set for themselves that I can help them accomplish by the end of the day. And then from 9 to 11, I'm going to take them through a lot of the resources that I've found and used in my own teaching of the Holocaust, and different ways of how to engage in them. There are different ways to look at a diary or look at a narrative or look at a story or watch a YouTube video or even watch a movie. And so we'll explore these resources not simply by, hey, look at this, but we're going to actually learn from them. We're going to actually dig into them in a pedagogical way. So hopefully, teachers and participants of this learning experience will not only get the resources that they might be able to use in their own classrooms, but they'll maybe learn a little bit about the Holocaust as well. This is another challenge common with middle and high school teachers is maybe a lack of content knowledge about the Holocaust itself. And so during these 2 hours here in the morning, we will not only explore different resources that they can use in their classrooms, but maybe they'll actually learn a little bit about some of these special events, some of the new ideas and stories that have been unveiled about the Holocaust in recent years. Then after lunch, we'll talk about how to assess the Holocaust. We're not going to really dig into how to assess content knowledge. I'm pretty sure that all your participants probably know how to do that. We'll talk about something called action-oriented projects, or something that students can actually do with this knowledge. This is the higher order thinking that might be important for students to engage in. I got to tell you, too, that I've found throughout the years that studying the Holocaust and genocide really seems to be a motivating and inspirational factor for students to actually do something with the knowledge that they have. And this doing something could be something as simple as addressing issues of bullying, for example, in their school or their community, or maybe there's some other issues of some dehumanizing process that is occurring in their community, or even the country, or even international events, some awareness about perhaps the Rohingya ethnic cleansing that is going on in Myanmar, especially if there's a Burmese population that's focused in a particular community. So we'll spend it out really talking about how to create and allow students to take some action based on the new knowledge that they have about the Holocaust. And then from 1 to 2:30, we're going to break out into groups or even individuals to actually develop something that they can use in their class. So maybe it's based on a resource that I showed them earlier in the morning, or maybe it's some new pedagogy that I've showed them, or maybe it's the action-oriented project, or maybe it's something about the framework that I'm about to show you that they can actually focus on in their class. Again, they can work in groups. If they've been sent to this presentation as a group, great. If they find other teachers from different schools teaching the same curriculum, and it's a U.S. history in 10th grade, maybe they work together, or maybe they work by themselves. It doesn't really matter. But what I will be doing during this time is just supporting their work and offering additional hints and clues and advice or resources that they can, that's particular to their experience. So I have an hour and a half booked out. If the people are working intently and purposefully, then this is going to go till 3 o'clock. And, I want them to take advantage of this time to actually leave again with something that's actionable that they can actually use in their classroom. So that's kind of the experience of the day that I've set up. I do want to talk a little bit about the framework that I told you about earlier. And this is something that I've come up with. And this is how I think about teaching of the Holocaust. And I think about it in the big picture of how to build a meaningful and purposeful life. As you see with this diagram, these are supposed to be little blocks down at the bottom. This is the foundation of a meaningful and purposeful life. And each of these blocks represents something else, whether it be family or education or the environment or pets or livelihood or music or whatever. And so we spend some time at the beginning here looking at what a meaningful and purposeful life was for the Jewish community before the Holocaust. And I think this is really important to again, humanize what might become dehumanized later on in the study of the Holocaust. And usually what students find is that the same blocks that make up their own meaningful and purposeful lives are the same blocks that are shared by the Jewish community before World War II. Then we spend some time looking at the process of chipping away. And this is really important in Holocaust education, is the process of chipping away these blocks, of taking away what is making their lives purposeful and meaningful, what is making them human. All of these blocks are chipped away. During this time, we talk about the resistance of the Jews themselves, how they fought back. We talk about certain rescuers from the outside and what their responsibilities are. And that leads up then to the final solution, or the collapse. Now, unfortunately, in a lot of educational environments, that is the full extent of Holocaust education, is that point of Auschwitz, of the final solution. And we kind of want to make sure that all of these 5 sections are equally addressed, and that the attention is not focused on the violence and death, but rather on life. And so while the collapse is important and the final solution is important, it's not the most important thing about the Holocaust. So again, just to recap, we're talking about what makes a meaningful and purposeful life. We talk about the process of chipping away. We talk about the collapse of life, basically, at the middle. And then we've spent some time afterwards. And I think this is just as important as the resiliency and the process of rebuilding these meaningful lives after the Holocaust and after World War II. And then you see at the top of the diagram the full blocks of a meaningful and purposeful life that we can argue whether or not that is ever attainable again after such an event like the Holocaust. So this is kind of the framework that I go from. This is what I will encourage participants to look at and to spend some time in each of these sections. And I argue that while not ideal, you can do a nice Holocaust lesson in these 5 areas in a single day. Or maybe you spend 1 day on each of these sections with 1 day left over for assessment. There's your 6 hours as recommended by the state of Michigan. Or maybe you spend a week on each of these sections if you have the time. It doesn't matter, but what I would, again, want to do is take this framework and have teachers look at how they can use this perhaps in their own individual environments. There's many different ways to look at the Holocaust, and in that 9 to 11 hour, we'll talk about these different ways, and I'll show them resources in each of these, whether it be looking at the Holocaust in a chronological way, looking at it through texts, whether it be diaries or narratives. So we'll talk about each of these ways, and there's probably 12 other ways that you can look at the Holocaust. And there's probably a good idea to mix these together, that a purely chronological look at the Holocaust probably isn't very effective. Neither is a total literary look at the Holocaust. That both of those would benefit and support each other. So we'll talk about that process as well. I just put a couple pages of resources that I have about the Holocaust and about genocide in general that I will also share with teachers that they can engage with on their own time, or that I can show them, but they will leave with a list of resources that they can use and look at it in the future, as well as any printed material that I use, whether it be diaries and things. They will have copies of those when they leave as well, so that they can use them in their own classrooms. So again, just looking at the schedule, this is what the day will look like, and with the goal leaving at 3 o'clock. With an actionable takeaway that teachers will be able to use in their own classrooms. And finally, of course, I will give them my contact information because I don't think that the teaching of the Holocaust and the improvement of it never ends. So even after they leave, if participants have questions about what they want to accomplish, I'm always open to help any teacher try new things, become better at what they are doing. And so while the experience might end at 3 o'clock, hopefully my involvement with them will not end at that time. So that's my proposal, and I look forward to working with you and with all of the teacher participants. Please let me know if you have any questions, and hopefully I'll hear from you soon. Thank you.